Sneakers and Cleats, the podcast.
Welcome back to the Sneakers and Cleats podcast. This is Thursday, March 6th. This is episode 177. Shocker we made it this far. Chuck Miketinac, Don Harris, Matt Roy. Not Javier. I was going to say Javier. Luis, who doesn't talk to Javier. Bob on the other side. Inside joke. Don't worry about it, guys. Anyway, guys, how's it going?
Great. How are you,
Great. Is
Matt?
this the part on the rundown that says pleasantries?
Pleasantries.
Yes. All right.
I want to make sure it's all in there.
Yes.
It's in there.
Chuck, congratulations on the anniversary. How many years have you
The
and your
big
wife?
3-6.
36 years.
Seems like 36 minutes. Underwater. That's what my wife says.
What did you say in your post? You're like, I would probably lose my keys, my wallet, and my mind if I didn't have you.
I said I'd be lost without her, which I would be, but also so would my keys and my wallet.
There you go.
So,
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary, Jack.
My wife gets mad when people ask how long I've been married, and I say like total marriage time, or this one.
it's like, what's
That's
the
a
movie?
Randy Beamer joke.
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
What's the
That's like LeBron's 50,000 points.
Yeah, we'll get to that too. But what's the line in the Robert Duvall movie? Good decades and bad decades. Mostly good decades. Yes.
First time you ever told me the underwater bit, I laughed my head off.
That was Dan Cook.
I tell that when my wife is not around. When she's around and I say that, how long have you been married? And I say 34 years. Seems like 34 minutes. Aw, underwater. She just like she does not think it's funny.
Doesn't she also just look at you like that normally? And just
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anytime, Matt, anytime you've been married 30 plus years to anybody, like Chuck and I have, they look at you like that 24/7.
Jordan does that now. It's only been 2.5. So
You're just getting started.
I know. Eventually, 30 years in, she just won't listen to me at all. So anyway, we got a lot going on. Spurs beat the Nets on Tuesday. Devin Vassell, masterful game from him, career high, 37 points. Is it a sign of the player he can be or a ceiling of the player that he is my question about that. We'll talk about that, plus De'Aaron Fox heading back to the Bay for the revenge game tomorrow against Sacramento. We'll hear from De'Aaron on his thoughts of being back. Plus, big week for the Cowboys. Lots of moves. Already more moves this week, it seems like, than they made all of last offseason. They signed Osa Odighizuwa. They made almost $60 million in cap room by restructuring Dak and CeeDee's deals. They retired one of the all-time greats, and then Jerry said, bleh. He basically threw cold water on all of it. So we'll get to all of that. Remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel, both News 4, Fox SA, download, rate, review, subscribe to the podcast version wherever you get your podcast. Let's start with the Spurs. So they beat the Nets 127-113. They're now the 13th seed. They have been 13th seed for a little while since the Blazers started rolling. They're 26-34 overall. Devin Vassell, what a night for him. 37 points, 8 of 11 from the three-point line, which is one of the best shooting games he's had all season, probably in his career as well. Chipped in for 10 boards as well. Absolutely masterful showing from him. Don, what was your take on his performance?
Yeah, it's a lot different when the ball goes in the basket, right? And when the ball goes in the basket, you look pretty good, and when it doesn't, you look pretty bad. Ask Brett in high school. I mean, those guys shot 5 for 34 from the three-point line, 16 of 66. They shot 23%. Their opponent, Bel Air, shot 63%, and yet it was a 4-point game with a minute to go. So the ball going in the basket, which is the name of the game, makes all the difference in the world. And Devin has not had a good shooting year. For him to break out, great for him. I hope it continues. As for the other question about ceiling or sign that he's a player of who he can be, I guess we'll get into that in a second. But overall, you got to tip your cap to him because he had a fantastic night. He took good shots, he made them, and when they go down, that kind of builds upon itself.
Chuck?
He made a lot of shots, right? And I think it's sort of easy to look at just his line score and go, wow, he totally won the game for them. But they had 37 assists, something like that? Or, I mean, it was over 30. I know that may not have been that
30.
high.
It was 37, you're right.
Was it? Okay. I mean, and that's been a trend here lately that they're starting to figure out how to play well with each other and then on top of it make buckets. So people are getting rewarded for that, obviously, with the assists. But, Yeah, the thing that popped to me again with Devin, though, the other night was he plus 36 or 37 like that in the plus minus? And Chris Paul was right behind him with like plus 31. That has to be seasonal highs in that stat in a ball game for either one of them. I haven't checked or done the research, but that's ridiculously high.
Yeah, absolutely.
That goes to show, how well they played the other night. And you could say, okay, well, they beat a team that had a lesser record than them and whatever. But, give credit where credit's due. That was a masterful performance. And, yes, they shot the ball well as a team, remarkably well.
Okay, so back to your question, right?
Hold on. Let's hear from Devin first, and then we'll get to that.
Okay.
It's just a matter of time. Just got to stay confident. I think that's the biggest thing. Whenever I start missing shots or whatever, I might get in my own head, and Mitch talks about it, and other people talk about it. And that's just the nature of the game, but I got to stay confident. It's my 5th year in the league, and I feel like the more aggressive I am, not even just to score, but just to make plays, like the better that we are playing. So just got to stay with it, but appreciate my coaches and my teammates for just encouraging me, truthfully.
Was he 11 of 14 or something in that game?
Something like that. What's frustrating for me when I see Devin, and this will get to the question that we're about to discuss, is like you see the potential, and you and I have had the conversation that he has the potential to be like the number 3 option on a really good team behind, in this case, it would be De'Aaron and Wemby. Now it looks like he's going to be closer to a 4th option with Stephon Castle. It's maddening to me when I see games like this from Devin Vassell because the potential is there. And so it's not like – I think this is something closer to his ceiling, but this ceiling would be a heck of a great ceiling. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's maddening when he has like a 15-point game where he goes 1 of 11 from 3 and turns the ball over 6 times, because then you see a game like this and you're like, that's who signed a 5-year, $100 million deal. That's who's making $21 million a year. That's why they did it.
30.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
It's like that's why it's frustrating to see games like this. It's great to see games like this, but it's also frustrating when you think about what they're paying him and what his potential is.
That soundbite, when he talked about, I've got to be aggressive, I disagree with it. Because I think, and I've been critical of Devin, I think Devin's a really good player. And I think the reason he got the $140 million extension is because he was the Spurs' best player at the time. And he showed a lot of ability. Since then, they've gotten Wemby, they got Fox, they got Castle. He's now their 4th best player. Mm-hmm. And Devin doesn't see himself as the 4th best player. He sees himself as the best player, which I don't really blame him for that. You want to have a guy to have confidence. If he can learn to play with a Fox who can make him better, with a Castle who can make him better, with a Wemby who can kick out and make him better, and he can learn to play within a system like he did the other night, he can be a very effective player. The problem is, depending on these lineups too, which, they're all experimenting, is sometimes he gets the ball and sees himself as Michael Jordan or LeBron James. I'm going to dribble out the shot clock and take a fall away from 25. And that's when he gets into trouble. So I think if the Spurs can get him to see, or maybe Fox gets him to see, I can help you. I can make you better. And he fits in without being ball dominant and thinking that he's, the leading scorer in the NBA and needs to have the ball in his hand at all times and can play within the system, then I think he can be a very, very good player.
Yeah, I liked what he did the other night in many respects, too, because they've tasked him to be more of a rebounder, too. So he was doing it on both ends of the floor. I think he had double digits in rebounds in that game as well.
Yeah, he had a double-double.
So I think it's about, hey, when you're hot like he was the other night, then, yeah, you damn sure better, like the other guys better be looking for you, too. Like that's on them when a guy is riding that kind of a streak. So, but, yeah, I think that's part of this whole game, right? The game within the game. He's got to figure out when are those moments. If you got it going early, maybe things change, and then you're going to get more shots. But if it doesn't happen early, then you got to move the ball. But try to have a little more Harrison Barnes in your game, where maybe you're not necessarily thinking about it. Scoring is your first option every single time you touch the ball.
What I think about when I think ceiling for Devin Vassell is there's 2 players that come to mind. One's a good comp and one's not such a good comp. Chris Middleton is the comp that I think. third best player on a really good team. At least he was a couple of years ago. Obviously, now he's on the Wizards. Being able to contribute around the centerpiece and potentially taking games over when you absolutely need to. When it's your night, and you can take a game over if he really needs to. That's what I think when I think Devin Vassell. Is there room for that on this kind of team with the Stephon Castle, with the De'Aaron Fox, with the Wemby now? I don't know. The other comp that I think of, is it a Jordan Poole situation, which is really good volume shooter that can score and is basically a walking bucket like he was on the Warriors team, and then he goes to the Wizards and is the best player on a bad team, but still gets up 35 shots a night, and you never know when he's going to go for 40. You know what I mean? It's like,
but the problem with Devin though is that where he struggles is when he takes contested shots and bad shots and fall away shots. Where he thrives is like the other night, where he takes uncontested threes. And when you have, and nothing against Devin because he didn't have De'Aaron Fox before. They didn't have anybody who could create for others. But now that he's got a De'Aaron Fox and Wemby, when Wemby gets back, those guys can create open, uncontested looks for guys like Devin. And that's where I think he can really thrive. And if he takes good, high-quality shots and uncontested shots, yeah. But, I mean, how many times does he dribble around the outside, drive towards the middle of the lane, and then take a fall-away, off-balance shot that doesn't – I mean, let's be honest. A typical line from Devin this year has been 5 for 17, right? 6 for 14.
yeah, it's not great.
It's not great.
He hasn't had a good year.
But the other night shows you a guy like Fox, a guy like Chris Paul – those guys want Devin to succeed. And he can be like a Harrison Barnes, that corner three. And he can drive. I'm not saying he's better than Harrison as far as off the dribble, but he just has to be smarter in his shot selection.
It's almost like the game of golf when players like us would go out there and you hit horribly all around long, and then you hit the great iron shot that you get to within 5 feet, and you're like, that's why I keep coming back. You see these games from Devin, and you're like, that's why we keep him here. That's why he's here, because he can do that. And it makes you want to rethink your position on Devin Vassell. Me, I have said a long time that Devin will be the centerpiece of a trade, either this season or next season, because I don't see him as a long-term piece. But then you see games like this, and you're like, oh, maybe he is a long-term piece. I don't know.
He's really good. This is what I see him as. I see him as if you could move him for equal value for a big, right? For a big that has the same salary structure and the same a guy who can get you 20 on a certain night. I don't know.
A Nurkic or Valanciunas.
Yeah, somebody like that.
Somebody like that.
I think their need is to put some beef next to Wemby because they do have this gluttony of wingmen, and especially with Castle coming on.
Bob?
Tom's in the house.
Hi, Tom.
Shout out Tom Guru.
You know who else is in the house once again this week is Val from France.
Hi, Val.
And
Bonjour.
and then she says about Vassell, the guy's gifted, obviously, but not very consistent, and he's not a rookie anymore for a while. So, can we expect him to be more consistent soon?
That's the age-old question.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
That's what everybody's pulling for.
I expect my irons to be consistent, and they aren't. So, I just don't know.
Let's hope this was a slump buster.
I also, we don't see these kinds of games from him when Victor's on the court often. When this happened, when we see these kinds of games from Devin Vassell, it was before Wemby was here, or it's like when Wemby's hurt, or when he's on the bench and he starts to take over. We don't see it with him on the court, and now that you have De'Aaron and now that you have Stephon Castle, I just don't know the room for Devin. I don't know if he's the one that you grow with at this point.
Well, they're having to play differently, obviously, with Victor not on the floor. But, I mean, there are a lot of guys playing – well, they're playing together differently. And then, there have been some other guys that have stepped up too that have, looked like they're playing better or more free with Victor not on the floor right now.
Yeah, it's just – I don't know. It's performances like this is weird.
He's got so much talent, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's so good off the dribble. And you see him in a you think of an all-star game or an AAU game, and if he went to the Washington Wizards, he might be their best player. But at the same time, we've seen Steph Castle come in as a 19-year-old. And although Steph may not be as good as Devin Vassell in certain ways off the dribble, creating mid-range jumpers, scoring. Steph Castle knows how to play with others. Mm-hmm. And that's why you like him better. I think if you're the coaching staff or whatever, you see the potential for him to gain what Devin has in those skills, but he knows how to play. He makes the right pass. He still makes a lot of mistakes, but from day one we said that kid knows how to play. Mm-hmm. Devin, all the ability in the world, but has been selfish and still needs chemistry work with his teammates.
The other thing going on here.
Is that me?
I don't know. It's one of you guys. Damn it, Don.
It's my sister.
Okay then.
Hi, Don, sister.
Hey, put her on speaker. Put her up to the microphone. We'll talk to her right now. The other thing going on with the Spurs right now is De'Aaron Fox going to be returning to Sacramento tomorrow. His first career game against the Kings, obviously, because he played his first 8 years with the Kings. First career game as an opponent in that building. This is what he said on, I think this was Tuesday after the game, or Monday after the game, excuse me. After the Thunder game is what this was, about going back to the place where it all began.
For me, it's another game at the end of the day, obviously. And I've been in the league for a while, so I've played with a lot of different guys. So usually just about every team that we play against, I probably played with somebody on that team. But I think it's a little different because I was in that city for so long. But it is what it is. When we get there, I'll see my people, and the next night we'll have a game.
Think to get a good reception, or does that matter to you? Or
does that matter to me? For the people who still love me, obviously I really appreciate that. Obviously I was there for so long, but for the people who don't, we're never worried about bitter people.
I don't want to look into a comment, but it seemed like there was a little bit of venom in the second part of that answer.
Well, I think you read some social media after he wanted out. Let's face it, he and his agency forced his way out when he came to San Antonio because that was what he wants to do. He wasn't going to sign an extension there. Everybody knows that. And so if you're a Sacramento fan, you feel spurned like we did here in San Antonio with Kawhi, and you're mad at him, and you say negative things on social media. He reads that. So I'm sure that's his reaction is, just got to not pay attention to that.
Yeah, I think social media, that's what else is he supposed to look at to kind of gauge where fans are at. But, if you're really a Kings fan and you really love that franchise, that logo, why wouldn't you give the guy a round of applause? He took you to a place you hadn't been in a while and, by all accounts, did the right thing while he was there. And then plus you're the Kings, you're one and a half games out of the 6th seed. Everything's working out great for you too. So no need to hate.
That was going to be my next question on this. When we see it a lot of times, will there be a tribute video, or will fans boo, or will they cheer when people come home?
So tired too.
It's so exhausting. But
Should Pete Rose be in the Hall of Fame?
Oh God. I expect there tomorrow. I expect there to be. He should. I expect there to be a tribute video for De'Aaron Fox. He spent his whole career there. I expect them to boo before the game starts, cheer before the game starts, and I expect them to boo when the game actually tips off. That's how you should go about a homecoming, to me. But
decent fan base. They should know better.
If not, then I have a friend of mine that works at a news station in Sacramento, so I'm gonna have her start whipping people if people start booing him before the game. He did a lot for that city. They should cheer him on. Anyway,
agree.
Let's get to the Cowboys here. So the Cowboys re-signed Osa Odighizuwa, who I had to look up the name 3 times to make sure I spelt it right. 4 years.
That H in there gets you right.
Yeah, exactly. Why is there an H in his name?
I don't know. I have to ask Osa.
I don't see one.
Next time
I
we
think
see
you
him.
misspelled it.
Well, no, it's up in the super. It's right. You're on the wrong page. Anyway, it's 4 years, $80 million. His base salary this year is about 1.75. So saving them money this year on his deal, obviously kind of backloaded there. What are y'all's thoughts on the boys kind of opening up the checkbook, bringing back the big defensive tackles? Chuck, we'll start with you.
Yeah, $50 million plus guaranteed. That's a great deal for him, right? But you look at his numbers and how he graded out last year at his position. He's a top 15 performer, and he does a lot of the dirty work, obviously, commands double teams, space eater, all that stuff. So he's not necessarily in a position to be the guy that was in there making a lot of plays, and yet he was in on the other side of the line of scrimmage a lot last year, and certainly earned. If guys are going to get paid this kind of money at their position or whatever it may be, he certainly earned it.
It's funny how play-by-play guys have to learn how to say his name because he's involved in so many plays. Right. And you saw that last year where he was involved in lots of sacks and lots of half sacks and lots of losses behind the line of scrimmage and on run plays. He kind of made us pay attention to him, and that's the way it's supposed to be done, right? He's a third-round pick out of UCLA, a guy that the Cowboys grew. He gets his second contract. That's the way it's supposed to be done.
Yeah, they love their homegrown talent, and the number is good too. You see guys like Chris Jones, who's a defensive tackle / D-end hybrid, and he makes closer to 30. And you see this as $20 million a year. It's like, okay, that's a pretty good deal. One, for him, but two, for the Cowboys to keep their homegrown talent.
Yeah. I hope too that he's going to be more of a spokesperson for the team too, because they're losing a lot with Zack Martin in that regard, and I think Osa has that in him to be the guy that can be really demonstrative, tell you what's going on camera. But I think because of, where he was contract-wise, maybe kind of like Zack Martin early in his career, didn't really feel the need to be the guy that's out in front. But I think with this nice reward of the contract, I think we're going to see more of him out in the public.
Yeah, he spoke this week on the Up and Adams show with Kay Adams, I think on NFL Network, and he's very well-spoken, and I think he did a great interview there. He spoke a little bit about Brian Schottenheimer sending him a bottle of champagne to celebrate on the day that his contract was announced. Let's hear from him real quick.
Face is saying, no, we have the guy we want.
We have the guy we want. The team, the locker room loves Shotty, and I think that's part of where it starts. I believe he's a smart guy, and just the person that he is. He's a good dude, Called me afterwards.
Really?
Said congratulations. Me and my family went to dinner. He found out where we went to dinner at, and he sent me a little gift too. Just the kind of care that he has for us, and it's the kind of coach that you can run through a wall for.
What did he send you? What did he send? Tell me.
A bottle of champagne.
He did. He found out where you guys were going, and he said, "Deliver." That's a classy touch. That's nice.
Guy.
All right.
Sure.
So yeah, a really classy move by Brian Schottenheimer, sending a bottle of champagne, finding where Osa was going to go to dinner that night, sending a bottle of champagne in celebration of that. Just a good move from the new head coach.
All depends on how good the champagne was.
I'm sure it was a fine bottle of champagne.
Wasn't a Mums?
It wasn't a Cook's. All right.
What was the one when we were kids? MD, what was
Logan David?
No, MD 2020.
I'm sure we can get.
What was it? I never even remember.
We might be able to get some
Mad
good
Dog 2020. That was wine. That was
flavor.
We might be able to get some good champagne recommendations from
Concord
Val. She's out
grape.
there in France, so she can send in some good champagne.
You knew it was classy stuff because Mogan MD 2020 was the Concord grape was on the bottom shelf at the 7-Eleven.
I think classy to us is a little bit different than classy to Osa Odighizuwa or Brian Schottenheimer at this point, though.
Rot gut.
Anyway, really good move by the Cowboys, and that started off kind of a week of Cowboys news. The next news that came out about them, Dak and CeeDee both redoing their deals, freeing up about $57 million. Excuse me, in cap room for the team, and then it started off a whole cascade of reactions on social media. All right, here we go, loading up. You got that. You got the selectively aggressive from Stephen Jones. What are they going to do with $57 million? Who are we going to get? And then Jerry Jones comes in yesterday at Zack Martin's retirement ceremony and just throws cold water on it all. Let's hear from Jerry.
I don't think aggressive is the right word. I think when we see a player that can take us in a direction that can improve where we're going to be pretty significantly from where we're going to be if that opportunity wasn't there, whether it be the talent of that individual player or whether it be addressing any perceived places we need help.
Can you tell me what the heck that was?
Wah, wah, wah.
What does that mean?
It means that aggressive isn't the right term, but they're still going to get people that they need to help the team. I don't know.
I don't know.
It was a bunch of word salad. But anyway, when his first words are, I don't think aggressive is the right word. After Stephen Jones comes out and says we're going to be selectively aggressive, all the fans are just like, What the hell?
And then he says, but when we see a player who can play a part in what we are going to be or we're going to be, significantly going to be, he never says, then we'll go get him. I don't know. I don't know what he meant there.
Well, I don't know. It's just kind of interesting, because I think at the heart of this, the best way to build your team right is through the draft, right? If you whiff on a certain amount of draft picks, you're going to have a bad team, right? And you got to have the rookie contract guys so that you can afford to pay the astronomical figures that they do to the rest of the 10% of your team. But, I just think some of this is he's on the defensive because he's probably tired that he's been beat up so much in the last, takes all the heat for the bad record last year and for everybody getting hurt.
As he should.
And so, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that he was there, so Williams got to go at least, probably more than one place, if we're being honest.
And not doing enough to make the roster better last year.
So, with that in mind, who do you want him to go get? I guess at this point, if you look at in free agency, who do you want him to go get?
Yes, Don.
I want him to go get Zack Martin's replacement with an Osa Odighizuwa-like contract, a $20 million a year, maybe one-time All-Pro, or somebody on the offensive line who has proven to be – other teams go, wow, that kid's going to be really, really good. 4 years in, whatever.
To be fair, guards don't even go for that much money. So,
whatever.
Yeah.
15 then.
Well, you could have done – I think what frustrates fans is you see teams like the Bears who saw that they needed offensive line help this offseason. You go out, you trade for Jonah Jackson from the Rams. You go out, you trade for Joe Thuney, who is the best offensive lineman for the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know what they're doing, trading their best offensive lineman when you just got overrun in the Super Bowl, but that's another point entirely. You go out and you trade for Joe Thuney for a 4th-round pick or a 5th-round pick. I think it frustrates fans to see, okay, well, we have this massive hole at left guard now, and Joe Thuney is obviously on the block. Why aren't we trading for Joe Thuney to shore up the left side of our offensive line for a 4th-round pick? Oh, we don't have a 4th-round pick. Because we traded for Barkevious Mingo. Or Jonathan Mingo, excuse me. That's a different Mingo.
Did we not learn from watching the Eagles in the Super Bowl rush 4 all game long that the game is won in the trenches on both sides of the ball? That's where I think, everybody wants this, DK Metcalf or the sexy thing. They need trench help. And they're going to have it. After they sign Micah, they're going to free up another $18 million. They're going to have around $75 million in cap space. And Jerry's acting like, oh, but we're not going to spend it because we're going to get everything we need in the draft. They've got to spend it. And they've got to go out and get high level, like you're saying, guys that are proven in the NFL that could have all pro potential like Osa, and get one for both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I think, too, some of this is setting the market, right? Like, if you tell everybody that this is what you're going to do, you're going to go to the draft, there are going to be some guys, really good players, on the back end of this after the draft that they're going to have to go fill the voids, the perceived voids, anyway, as Jerry would say. So, and they've done this before. They got J-Ron Curse, Malik Hooker. They got good mileage out of those guys, and they got them for pretty damn cheap, too.
Yeah.
So,
especially Hooker.
But you're right. I mean, they need defensive line help, but, what do? You sign Bosa, and maybe you can get him for cheap, or any one of these other guys that have been cut. Darius Slay.
You can get him cheaper. You have so many holes on your team. Running back is a huge hole. Offensive line, massive hole. Is Terrence Steele going to step up and play like the player he was 2 years ago and not the player who was last year? What are you going to do at right guard? Is Cooper Beebe going to move over now to left guard instead of playing center? What are you going to do on your defensive line? Do you have any linebacking depth without Eric Kendricks there, without Overshown there? You have so many holes to fill. Him saying, yeah, we're going to fill most of our holes through the draft is just falling on deaf ears once again when you have 21 free agents now with Osa gone. 21 pending free agents. What the hell do you mean you're going to plug through the draft?
The big concern to me is, I don't know if he's bluffing, but the other soundbite where he said, I don't think we have any voids that we can't fill through the draft. No, there's a lot of voids that you need experienced players, right? So if you get Ashton Genty at running back, great. He may turn out to be really good as a rookie. But I don't know that you get a Tyler Smith again, in the draft that can come in day one and be an all-pro like Zack was. I think that's where you need some vets. And like you said, they've done a good job in the past of getting some reasonably priced veterans.
And you saw them fill a hole last year with Eric Kendricks. It's just like,
yeah,
who are you going to spend the $56 million on now? Because you have $56 million. Some of it's going to Osa, obviously. Who else do you need to re-sign? Probably Deron Bland. Probably need to re-sign Jordan Lewis. Maybe Rico Dowdle at the right price. Micah, obviously. Besides those four, the rest of the money has to go to fill the holes on your roster. And right now, there's a lot of holes on this roster. You need a 2 receiver, too. Someone besides CeeDee and Brandon Cooks. Jalen Tolbert maybe can fill that hole. I think he performed well last year. But you have so many holes, I think it's just tone deaf to say we're going to fill through the draft. Don't worry about free agency. So let's get to the last thing on the list here. Zack Martin retiring yesterday after 11 seasons, 9-time Pro Bowler, 7-time All-Pro. Just an absolute class act. And you saw how much his teammates loved him yesterday. Tony Romo showing up, Travis Frederick, Tyron Smith, Tyler Biotish, now playing for the Commanders, comes back to show support for Zack Martin. This is what Zack said at his presser before we get into it.
This year, not finishing out was tough. And I really kind of wanted to wait till around the Super Bowl. That time of year usually is like you start to get the itch to go start training and doing all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to see if I, maybe just woke up one day and was like, I'm not done yet. But that didn't come. So I'm very at peace with my decision, and I think I made the right call.
Thoughts on the ceremony, guys, and what everyone said, what he said yesterday?
I really liked how Jerry and Steven basically stayed out of the way and made it about Zack. They have a tendency sometimes at those things to dominate the conversation. And I think he's a guy that, goes into the Ring of Honor in the next couple of years, goes into the Hall of Fame first ballot. And, dude, I think the thing we remember most about him is his leadership. When you were at training camp or anything and you saw him, those other offensive linemen gravitated to him and listened to every word, and guy just showed up every day and did his job. Just what a pro.
Yeah, pro's pro, man. And just like one guy you could always count on, right? No matter what you needed, no matter what you wanted him or you needed on the team, if somebody else went down, he would slide, he would do whatever and dominate more often than not. I'm sure it was really hard on him last year trying to play through the messed up ankle. But, I think he got the nudge that it was time, and, great career, no question about it.
Yeah, I love that he threw the little dig in there at Jerry, too, about having to be convinced to draft him over Johnny Manziel. I thought that was funny. Yeah. To me, it was a little bit saddening just because it's the end of it. It's the true end of an era.
Right.
Travis Frederick, Tyron Smith, Doug Free, Lyle Collins, and Zack Martin. Like, you had the best offensive line in the league for years because of those guys. And now this is the last one gone.
And I think the really cool statement was Jerry said, I never once had a contract negotiation. Remember he held out 2 years ago with his representation.
Just when we were starting up this podcast, just saying.
Yeah, his representation. Zack would come into my office and shut the door. We'd talk man to man. He didn't need an agent. He had an agent, but he said we worked it out right there man to man. Zack said, Jerry, the best offensive lineman in football needs to be paid like the best offensive lineman in football. Yeah. And so smart guy who can work out his own deal.
No, I mean, it's the true end of an era. He's a class act. There's no question he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. At least he should be, in my opinion.
He will be.
You don't have what 7 holding calls in 11 seasons without being a first ballot Hall of Famer.
First team All-Pro is a rookie.
Him, I mean, I think I know both of your guys' answer. Is he the second best guard in Cowboys history?
Behind Larry Allen?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. I think it's a little bit of a hyperbole to say best guard, a little bit disrespectful to the great Larry Allen, who passed away last year. But, yeah, I can't think of anyone else that is better besides those two.
You'd have a hard time finding somebody better than Larry Allen across the league.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, he might be the best guard of all time.
It's probably not a
Yeah.
fair fight. Yeah.
So, I mean, when you're being compared to guys like Larry Allen, I think you had a pretty good career.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, anyway, that's all we got for you today on the Sneakers Cleats podcast. Remember, download, rate, review, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, tell a friend, tell an enemy. Thank you for everyone who tuned in and made comments on the YouTube, Facebook feed. We'll be back on Monday.